Okay, so I will kick off this non-Sibi project with Transition House, making welcome baskets for children entering shelter, by introducing two of the amazing staff that run the place and help folks in need. Julie Conche, you can see, there she is the clinical director at Transition House. She's been at the organization since 2006, and she provides mental health support for residents and coordinates clinical and counseling resources. She's a clinical social worker and has been in the mental health field for many years, supporting children and families, especially in the domestic violence space. And then we have Franzi, wave for us, Franzi. Rudolph, is that right? Rudolph, yeah. Who is also a clinical social worker, LICSW, just like Julie. She started with Transition House about a year ago, and she's the child and family liaison, which basically means that she is in charge of the all-important and very necessary counseling for children and their families. And she has some other roles as well. She might explain to you later. But before that, she was a play therapist. And if you guys would like to add anything to that for now, or wait till a bit later when you talk. Good.
I think it's good. Yeah, it's a good place to transition.
A good place to start. And then Transition House. I'm just going to give a few sentences about Transition House, and then I'll give it over to Julie. So Transition House, believe it or not, this is a pretty cool fact, was the first domestic violence shelter on the East Coast, and began in 1975, which is about 45 years ago now. Over 45, I don't know, I'm not good at math. A long time it's been around. And when it opened as the first DV shelter on the East Coast, it was actually the second in the entire country. So that's pretty amazing that it's been around and offering services to people in our area for so long. Transition House, I'll of course let Julie go into details, but it offers a range of housing resources. It offers support services and prevention tools with the goal of family safety and stability, and prevent safety from domestic violence and stability in their lives overall. So that's what I've got for now. And if everybody's ready to hear a little bit about Transition House and the amazing work they do, I'll hand it over to Julie.
Awesome. Thank you so much. We started talking about this with Tiffany back in the late fall, and I'm so excited that today has finally come, and already that there is so much energy and so many things. And both Franzi and I are excited to share with you more about Transition House and about the way that this project, that Welcome Baskets, will really support family stability and family safety. So as Tiffany already said, I'm going to start with programs and then I'll kind of back up. Actually, I want to do one thing, which is to say that when Transition House started, I want to tell you that started because two women who lived in public housing started to recognize that their situations and situations they were hearing about in their community were pretty horrific, and women had no place to go. Basically, they started by saying, "Hey, let's, maybe this wouldn't fly today." I'm going to say that, but they started by writing on a piece of paper, "If you're not safe in your relationship, call us, and we can find you a place to go." They put it on the insides of bathroom walls around, I'm sure bars, the library, wherever they could get in Cambridge. They moved in together in one of their apartments and made the other one a shelter. And as they're still doing the work, both of them are still doing the work, not at Transition House, but they're still doing lots of work to change the landscape for people suffering from violence. And basically, as they describe it, and you can find some videos about this, and I'll tell you about that later, but as they describe it, basically within months, they had a wall-to-wall apartment where they'd have to put the mattresses up at night during the day in order to be able to walk through. And those scrappy roots are still very much with us. The domestic violence services is now part of kind of governmental recognition, if you will. And with that comes a lot more structure and a lot more money and support. But there's still very much a piece of that grassroots spirit in the way that we do things. So I wanted to kind of honor both those things, because I think it speaks to this project as well, and like large scale and small scale, how those intersect. So when we were planning this and finding a time in common, today felt really perfect, because it's the UN International Day of the Family, happens every year on May 15th. And each year the UN takes this day as a day to highlight an issue impacting families across the globe. At first glance, today's theme is advanced technology and the way that it impacts family. And I thought, I can't make a link to that, but really, frankly, it describes our whole year, right? So first, we're able to connect on Zoom and still do, you as a group of alum are able to do enormous and wonderful things, even via Zoom and via, stay connected. And certainly, Franzi will talk about this a little later, but our advocates, our clinicians, we're working under the same crazy circumstances that everybody is. Paige, trying to go to school on Zoom, I bet some of the time, trying to work, trying to stay connected to family, and we're trying to do the same thing. And anyway, so I'm getting a little off script here, but I wanted to say that I do see a total theme and a link in that. So what you are all doing is part of supporting Transition House to support family strength. Okay, so I want to say that I want to share a tiny bit of statistics with you, but statistics are notoriously problematic. So internationally, there is a broadly stated statistic that 1 in 3 families, actually 1 in 3 women, but I want to talk more about that as well, will experience domestic violence or sexual violence over their lifetime. That's reported. And so chances are that's higher because a lot of people either have shame or don't have access to resources, or both, and don't report in the same way, or have access to, I should say the opposite way, have access to enough resources that they would never come into contact with an agency like ours. And also that does not speak to the fact that some folks will experience domestic violence repeatedly, maybe as children, maybe in adult relationships, and in other ways. So anyway, there's a statistic for you, but we can tear it apart in a lot of ways. But I think it's alarming, and certainly during COVID, both what people are seeing around the world as like lockdowns and openings happen across the world is an increase in domestic violence and an increase in complexity. So as you all, it sounds like you all know in one way or another from your experience already, that when people are already vulnerable and or oppressed in some way, the impact of something like COVID is going to impact them more and in more complex ways. And so that has, and then also, I would imagine we can all relate to this on some small scale, being in your house with only the people you live with, and not a lot of other intersecting relationships, is very challenging and very stressful. And so if there's already some potential violence happening, it very well may get worse. Our agency, so let me just check in because I can just keep talking, or I want to switch to our agency, but please let me know. Am I talking too fast, too much?
So I was just going to say, this is great so far, but I want people to know that as long, Julie and I were sort of talking before, but if you guys have questions that are popping up or comments or just stuff that, if Julie says something and you want to know more, you find it interesting, like feel free to, hop in.
Yeah, wave your hand.
I think we have a small group, so we can be pretty casual about it. So don't hesitate.
I have a question.
Sure.
Is your transition house focused on the women that are in crisis, or is it focused on the children? For some reason, I had the idea that the crisis had already occurred when you all engage, that you are focused on, not to use the word rescuing, but you all are focused on the responsibilities of transitioning the children. But what you're saying sounds like you're transitioning the woman as well from a domestic violence situation.
That is a great question. And I'm actually just about to describe the agency. And I think you'll get a better sense of that. Because in some ways, Pride, it's actually, yes, it's all of those things. So our name, Transition House, is a little bit problematic, even though it also describes a lot of what we do, because we have a full range of programs. So we have our newest program is our community, actually not quite our newest. Our second newest program is our community program. Not to put Margot on the spot, but as Margot probably knows, the vast majority, sorry, Margot, it's okay. I'm not going to ask you to say anything, but I just wanted to use your name to say that Margot, I'm sure better than anyone on this call knows that many people who experience domestic violence will never go into shelter. One, they don't need shelter, maybe. Two, shelters are notoriously, sorry, I shouldn't have said shelters are notoriously, there's an incredible lack of space for people who need shelter for safety and for the financial reasons of not having another place to go, not renting a hotel room, for example, or just simply getting another apartment. Our community team is very robust, and we served 112 the active clients just last year. So Pride, I hope that speaks to one aspect of what you're saying. But more in detail, I think the other thing that I was going to say is we have a range of housing programs. Emergency shelter is often, but not always, the first place someone comes. They already have left a domestic violence situation. They're fleeing to shelter. And then we have a range of programs from there, including transitional living apartments, which are shared apartments, basically, with some support, but not any other staff member living there. They're you would walk by and not have any idea that it was anything different than another apartment around the area. And permanent supportive housing for folks who are have a documented disability, of a full range of any disability that is a documented disability that impacts them, and also are survivors of violence. And we have we have a really wonderful partnership with Cambridge Housing, where we provide some support for folks who are permanently housed. And then it's basically like supporting them in housing, which they will then stay housed in apartments, but we're providing a first year of support and stability. I think that you asked another part of that question, Pride, and I have to admit, I don't know if I answered it or not. I think you're on mute.
Yes, I'll learn more as we go along.
Sure.
Thank you.
Sure. So last year in our shelter alone, we had 63 families and individuals. So that people will stay in our shelter anywhere. There's not like a minimum and there's not a maximum, which is a good thing. When I first started in this work, there was a maximum amount of time we were allowed to shelter people, and it didn't necessarily translate to stability. The sad part is sometimes people stay in shelter a lot longer than they might need it for violence, for escape from violence, but more for reasons of not being able to find affordable housing to leave. One thing I want to say, and I want to make sure to say, is that we do not serve only women as parents or as single women. We also serve anyone who is fleeing violence, man, woman, trans, anybody. We are ADA accessible, meaning we have wheelchair and disability accessible spaces common space and bedrooms. And for, do folks know what TTY is? It's, I'm sorry that I'm struggling to remember what it stands for, but it's basically devices to allow someone who cannot hear to still be notified of emergency, still communicate on phone. So our bedrooms are, well, 2 of our bedrooms are fully outfitted for that, which is great. We have a number of staff across the agency, and Franzi will describe her role in a moment, supporting people both in the community and in shelter, and in all of our apartments, ranging from hotline advocates, I shouldn't say from, excuse me, like I don't mean less to more, I mean the whole range of services that you could imagine. We have the hotline, we have a 24/7 hotline, excuse me. We have people living in a congregate shelter. We have people living in apartments by themselves or with a roommate. And we have as well a robust community program with support in court, support with housing, support with benefits, counseling. One thing I wanted to say special this year, as you can imagine, and I'm sure everybody already knows this, living in close quarters is considered a risk for COVID transmission. So early in March, a few of us, sorry, actually late in March, a few of us across different aspects of the agency were sick. There were not tests available at the time, but because we all had symptoms that looked like they could be COVID, we had to immediately pull out our services and allow, and because we saw that as a high risk. That is a first time for us. That's never happened in the history of Transition House. Obviously COVID hasn't happened, but meaning we have always had 24-hour support. So we moved essentially online and on video, and we had staff there also come in overnight or twice a week. And that was pretty rough for a while. But we also were able, through some wonderful support from, I don't actually know where the funding's coming from, but through wonderful support and like serious quick thinking and moving from staff, even before we knew we had the financial support, we procured some long-term hotel rooms, and we had some folks who would live in shelter instead live in hotel rooms, so that we could create more space and distance from people. And because it's considered congregate care, our staff and our clients were able to be among the first to be vaccinated, which was wonderful and very helpful. So I just wanted to give you a sense of what it's been like this year. And I have been talking a lot. And so, Franzi, have I forgotten to say something? Do you know?
No, I think I would just clarify that, like, we were able to keep our shelter open. So like nobody was moved out of shelter during that time. And, yes. But we were able to sort of reduce staff there and move that online. But no one was not served during this time.
Thank you so much for emphasizing that. In those days when, like, I'm sure everyone was on the phone or in meetings all day long in early March, when we all knew it was coming, the advice was thin out your populations, whatever that means, right? But like make more distance between human beings. And we made a very conscious decision that, and as you might remember, like some parts of the world were already in full lockdown. We made a very conscious decision at that point that we could not welcome people. We could not reduce our number of spaces because it was already so dire without COVID, like how hard it is to find shelter. So yeah, we actually served more people in shelter once we got some more funding than we normally do, because of the hotel rooms, but we were never down any population. Yeah, thank you for highlighting that, Franzi. Okay, so Franzi, I'm going to turn it over to you. I did not do a great job of describing your role, but I'm going to let you do that.
Yep.
That sound good?
Yes, perfect. Okay. Do we have any questions before I jump in on anything Julie said or anything that's just popping up that we can answer?
I've got one.
Yes.
So just to go back, so you said 63 families and then you said individuals. So is 63 families, meaning people all together, or 63 families and then the children as well? Like, how is that?
Sorry, it's easier for me to lose my track when I'm like looking at people on a screen. I did want to spell that out more. Thank you for asking it. So we had 63 human beings in shelter throughout the year. About 35 of them were children over the course of the year. Is that right, Franzi?
Yeah, that seems right.
Mm-hmm. Or is that current? I'm mixing up my numbers. Yeah.
It's always around that, I think.
It's always around that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And is that about average for you for a normal year? Is it up or down this year based on, COVID?
So in the shelter, it doesn't change a lot. As I said, we brought one more unit. No, at some point we had 2 more units on. So it might be a teeny bit higher, but by the same token, people might have moved quicker in other years, because it's easier to look for an apartment or whatever. So I would say it's going to work out about the same every year. That's just in shelter, though. We serve far more children across programs, but not in terms of the focus of this project, for example. Yeah.
Right. Okay. I have more questions, but I want Franzi to go and then I'll circle back at the end. Thank you, Julie.
Sure.
All right. And you can interrupt me at any time. So Julie gave a great introduction about transition house in general. And I think one thing that makes our program also very unique is that we have a specific children's services team. And that's because more and more recognition is coming that adults are not the only survivors of domestic violence. We know that children come into all of our programs with their own experiences of domestic violence, their own stories, their own trauma. And we know that approximately 1 in 15 children every year is exposed or experiences domestic violence. And it might be even higher than that. And so a lot of programs are recognizing that, that children have their own needs when they come into our programs that are, it's definitely in conjunction with those of their parent, but also very specific to themselves. And so Transition House has a children's services team, which is just 2 people. It's myself and like Tiffany introduced me, I'm the child and family liaison, and my primary role is to provide trauma-informed counseling to children and their caregivers, both in the shelter and throughout our other housing programs, as well as to any parent who might ask for those services in our community. And that is primarily right now for children who are no longer living with the parent that caused harm. That tends to be sort of the majority of kids that we see, or parents reaching out for services. And then I have a colleague named John, who's our child services coordinator. And the 2 of us sit both in the community team and the residential team, which means that we do serve all children and families across the whole agency, basically. And one of our sort of main goals is always to ensure that our shelter and our housing programs are trauma-informed and child-friendly, that they do recognize the specific needs that kids have when they come in, to ensure that we have fun, child activities throughout the year. And we were able to actually do a lot of that over Zoom this year. So to continue keeping the kids involved every week in different activities. And then just to ensure that our space meets all the needs that kids have. And that could be basic needs, resources that they might need, registering kids for camp and school, and sort of all those things that fall away when families have to move suddenly. And then as well as the individual counseling piece. And I see Olivia has her hand raised, so I'm going to pause there for a second.
Thank you, Franzi. I'm curious to learn more about when you say that folks are trauma informed, what that looks like for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I know trauma informed is sort of a word that's being sort of used all over the place now. It basically means that we recognize that every behavior that somebody has could be based in trauma, and that we see the person who comes into our our space holistically with their whole history and anything that might have happened to them, and to not ask basically what is wrong with this person for behaving in a certain way or engaging in a certain way, but more asking like what has happened to you or in your life over the course of your life that's causing you to maybe react in a certain way. You know, with adults that could be, you know, repeatedly missing important appointments or not having their paperwork with them. And instead of being like, you know, I've explained this to you 100 times, like why are you still, you know, not showing up or still missing all of these things? It's to take a step back and ask, you know, what is making gathering these things hard right now? What is making it hard to keep these appointments? So it's just looking at people through a different lens. And with children specifically, that's when we see like a really big explosive behaviors, which we can often see in kids who've experienced trauma, is to not sort of, you know, react sort of, you know, in a hard way to that and say, oh my goodness, like this kid is unmanageable, right? But to ask like what is behind those behaviors, like what might have happened to them that's causing them to react.
I would add too to that, Franzi, that it's about also making our spaces flexible and accommodating and you know, accepting, but also like ready to support and contain. I think Pride, did you, I don't know, sorry, everybody moved around just now.
Yeah, it's funny. The question I would have is when you have a child that comes into a different space with people surrounding them that are trained to identify the trauma, is there one sort of qualitative aspect of their housing, such as routine, that helps to restabilize them in the new space? I don't know exactly how to ask that question, but I would think that routine might help, a predictability that might have not existed prior. So that's my question.
That's a fabulous question.
Yeah.
Franzi, do you want to take that?
Sure, I can start and then please add, Julie. I think everything you mentioned, Pride, is exactly right. It is, you know, routine and predictability and consistency, and all of those things, right? If there's a sudden move, especially when a family's moving into our shelter, they have likely just fled domestic violence or a home that was scary. And so all of those, like that predictability and that consistency, all of that has sort of fallen away. And so that is one of our first goals in the first few sort of hours and days of a family living with us, is to stabilize and to try to create that routine and consistency as much as we can. And that, and I think also empowering the parent to be able to establish that again for their children. Because that, you know, there's so much happening in this family unit at that moment, that can be really hard. But we do, we see kids who are either really scared and sort of super high energy, and then we have other kids that could come in very withdrawn and very scared. And I think one wonderful thing about our shelter is that we partner with Horizons for Homeless Children, and we have an incredible play space that was built in our shelter. And that has sort of everything a child could possibly need to make their own and to play. And so often while parents are getting settled and doing all of the paperwork and all the things that are needed to be able to live with us, this is a space that kids can use to play in. It has a dramatic area, it has books, it has lots of art supplies, sort of anything a child could need. To have sort of to make it their own for a few hours. And the welcome baskets, which I'll talk about in a few minutes, is one of the really big important pieces that we've added this year to recognize, especially that that can be an incredible sort of first step in helping a child feel calm and settled. But I'll have Julie add if there's anything before I talk about those.
No, that's exactly what I was going to say. This is the welcome baskets are a key part of that, and that's why we're so excited that this is launching, or really already well in progress, because John and Franzi are trying to do the work to like recognize that when so right now when families come in, we line up the basics. I think Pride, you were speaking about like what it might mean to like not have a toothbrush, right? As you're rushing out of a house, or a home, or don't have a home because you've been couch surfing. So those things are there and they're welcoming. Along with, I want to say, along with gift cards, right? So that people can buy some necessities that they need and make the choices that they want for what they need. But kids, as you can kind of probably imagine from the way Franzi described some fairly typical ways that kids come in, like the flip side of that is that we need to do some paperwork with the family, but mostly with the parent. We need to orient them. They're probably kind of nervous themselves about where did I just land, because they do not know what it looks like or where they're coming until we open the door to them. And the kids, as much as we try for this not to be the case, can often feel a little bit lost in the shuffle in those first few days. And so the welcome baskets are a way to say to kids, like literally welcome, but that we recognize you and you're coming, and we want you to feel that this is for you too, right? That this is a welcome place. And the things that we put on this list that could be in there are the necessities, like pajamas, to everyone calls them something different, whether it's a stuffy or a lovey, but like some cute little squeezy thing that is theirs, right? That says, I see you and welcome. And that, like right now we have 2 children under 1 in our shelter, and we have a 15-year-old, and we have 8-year-olds and actually a 16-year-old as well. We got the whole range, and everybody deserves to feel that this is a place for them. So that's a nice link to it. I want to say one other thing, which is that I don't want to lose sight of another thing that Franzi and John do, and all of our team does, which is not just about inside our agency and our services, but also liaising. This is where Franzi's liaison piece comes in. It's not just about training and prevention. It is also about all of the ways that our clients interface with the rest of the world, if you want to say, whether it's entrance into a new school, legal services, making sure that their special education needs are met and understood and maybe reevaluated, and doing what they can to help families interface with services that are trauma informed themselves, which is definitely not always the case. And I think that's a huge part of what we do as well. I'll shut up again.
Oh, no. So what I was going to say, I just want to be mindful of time, of everybody's time. So I thought I would just sort of let everybody know what we were thinking of for sort of the final things here. So I think, Franzi, you were just going to sort of talk about the impact of the welcome baskets, if there's anything you wanted to add to that. And then I was thinking we could just pick, if you guys are open to it, they have two videos, a 2-minute and a 3-minute. Should we watch the 2-minute one? Because it's actually a girl that was formerly in shelter. That sounds impactful. And then if people have time at the end, we could maybe play the other one if they want to stay on, but we'll give people permission to sort of go off if they need to. And then after the video, I'm going to show you guys the welcome baskets, and that actually might crystallize what Franzi and Julie have been talking about, and showing you like some of that, what's in a welcome basket, all finished for a 0 to 1-year-old versus a 13-year-old. Just so you can see the overview of them, and then just what's in them. Then we can say hooray. So Franzi, is there stuff that you wanted to add to before we watch the video?
Yeah, I think the welcome baskets was an idea that John and I had this year, to exactly like Julie said, to really center the child that comes into our space. And one thing we talked a lot with Tiffany about was also that it wouldn't just be a basket or a box or whatever it is, but also have name tags on it so that it's specific for that child, because that just seeing their name in an unfamiliar space, right, can be so centering to know that this is really like a space that's going to be mine. And so, for those of you who've been making them, you'll see that it has so many, perfect, yes, exactly. That it has so many different categories in it. And like Julie said, some of them are just, the basic necessities, toiletries and clothing, because those are often things that kind of get left behind in the rush of having to move. And then there's other items that are just comforting, like Julie said, like a stuffed animal or blanket or pajamas, or fuzzy socks, something that just allows the body to sort of feel comforted. in this new unfamiliar space, as well as just some toys and some books, because often, favorite toys and beloved possessions might need to have been left behind or get lost in the move. And then that big, final category, which, to those who are not as familiar with trauma, are the sensory items that we asked to be included in all of the different baskets. And that's just because, kids who have experienced trauma have often so many big feelings and big worries that can really send sort of their body into that fight or flight or freeze response. And especially when, they're coming into an unfamiliar space, all of that trauma and those feelings in the body can be heightened. And it's often very hard to reach kids sort of through language or through books when sort of their emotional brain has kicked in, because they're triggered in some way and their thinking brain has been totally gone offline. So it can be really hard to engage a child in those moments where the emotional brain has sort of taken over. And so sensory items are incredible for the tools in those moments, because a child doesn't need to talk. They don't need to tell us what's going on. They don't need to explain anything. They can just hold something. Yes, exactly. Something distracting and something that sort of allows their nervous system to calm down. And so we ask that a lot of those be included in those baskets, because those can be such great tools in the first few hours and days as a kid is sort of getting settled in our space, and as we're interacting with them, to have something that really allows them to sort of self-regulate and self-soothe as they sort of start to feel comfortable in our spaces. So that's one of the great things that we were able to include in those. And so I think that's, so we're so grateful for everyone's input in making these, because they will be such an incredible first thing for a child to have when they enter any of our programs.
Thank you, Franzi.
Thank you, Franzi. Yeah, you put that really beautifully. So do you want to put on one of the videos? If you liked the other one, but you choose. I know.
I'm still deciding. No, I'm gonna go with what you suggested, Tiffany, and let you all know that we're gonna send a follow-up to many of the people who have volunteered, and but at our website we have a number of things called 40 stories, because we launched it for our 40th year, and to be honest, it was probably our 42nd year by the time they were all done. And they tell stories from a variety of perspectives, and they're just beautiful. They were an amazing collaboration. So the one that I'm not going to show you is Michael, who is our board member, but previously a long time, thank you, Franzi. Thank you for reminding me. A longtime volunteer who describes really beautifully some of what Franzi did from his perspective about the ways kids, how they come in versus how they leave. And I definitely encourage you to watch it, but I am going to work hard, and Franzi is just reminding me what I said, is that I have to figure out how to share sound as well. Technology, not my forte. So hopefully this will work. And I'm not going to share the screen yet until I make sure that I've got it up. But this is Desaya, who she will tell you in her own words about her experience with us, and it's 2 minutes. So give me a sec.
I can answer any more questions or their thoughts while Julie figures this out.
I have a question for you.
Yes.
Are all the children accompanied by a parent?
Yes. In our program, yes. They are. So anyone who enters our shelter or housing programs, absolutely. In the community team, we do also have families or individuals who might be foster parents reaching out to us to maybe work with their children. Or we also have a lot of providers or foster parents or others who are caring for children, like teachers or educators, reaching out to us just for consults. So we might not be working with the children specifically, but we can sort of provide a consult on what to think about when working with a certain child, or to do that trauma-informed piece, or that some background on domestic violence and how it might be showing up for that child. So that's something, so in those cases in the community team, we do sometimes work with people who are not necessarily the parent of the child.
So sorry, Francie.
No, go ahead.
I've got it up. Can you remind me, how do I share sound specifically? Or do we want to just see if it works?
There is a button for it. I just don't know. Olivia.
I can't remember if it's on the screen or like which screen it would be on, whether it's on Vimeo or it's on.
It'll be on the Zoom screen.
On Zoom, okay.
So when you click share screen,
yeah,
a little pop-up will come up and you'll be able to select which screen, and then before you say share screen, you actually want to click off a little button in the bottom left that says share sound.
Okay, all right, so here I go. I'm gonna do share screen, and then, oh, there we go. So exciting. Okay, thank you all. Thank you both. Can you all see it?
We can.
Okay, let's see if you can hear it.
My name is Desai and I'm in the 4th grade. I like Transition House because they took care of us. They helped us get a new apartment. Packing up was the hardest thing I ever did. I had to fold all my brother's clothes, and we still have a lot more to do. I like to cook with my mom, and when I grow up, she thinks I'm gonna be a good cooker, and then I'm gonna have to cook for her just like she cooked for me. I go to yoga class, and it helps my body. Like when we take deep breaths in before we start, it helps my heart stay calm. At Transition House, I learned to respect my elderlies, and I learned that I could trust other people that I love. And the thing I really learned at Transition House that sticks out of my mind is to love myself and love others. Welcome to Tea House by Desire. We're so glad you're here. Come in, there's no fear. Come play in our playroom, but you have to be good. This house is full of fun. We will love you to clown around.
I don't even think that was 2 minutes.
I'm crying already.
I know.
Incredible.
I know Desire, and I still tear up knowing that.
That was so beautiful. Oh my goodness. Okay. Wow. Any thoughts after watching that video, anyone, or anybody else feel teary?
One thing I loved is how she mentioned that she learned how to trust folks, and I think that's an incredible aspect of this work.
Yeah.
I also think it just shows kind of how individually client-centered your services are, right? Children might need something different than parents, and being able to offer both at both kind of age appropriate, culturally appropriate ways and fun is so important as we help our families move into a safer place.
We couldn't say it better ourselves, Margot. Thank you.
Well, you know, what I liked about when we were thinking about what to put in these welcome baskets, I really liked how the Transition House team, obviously, they're super trauma informed, but you know, you always start with Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So like, what are the basics? Like, what do you need to literally survive? Like the food and the hygiene stuff and the this and that and clothes, right? But then having that ability to see what else they need other than just the basics. You know, if you're thrown a toothbrush and a toothpaste when you walk into a shelter, well, that's good, so you don't have to ask for it, but that's not what's going to help you feel safe in that environment, right? So the idea that you guys are thinking of educational, soothing toys, comfort items, books, journals, creative things. I mean, and then of course the basics is just, so it's an amazing way to sort of scoop a child up and help them feel at home or more at home in their new home and feel like a real human being that matters too. I think that dignity piece that you guys keep talking about with for the parents that are coming into shelter or for the kids is so important. And there's many ways in which you guys help create an atmosphere where people can have self-determination and dignity and agency. But I think doing that, the welcome baskets are just another way that you guys are offering that to the children that come in. So it's very impressive. I don't think we're going to do the glitter bottle activity at this point because we took up a lot of time with stuff, but do you want to show your glitter bottle, and then I'll have my kids come in and show theirs, and then I'll show you guys the welcome baskets and see what's been everybody has donated and what it looks like.
Yes. So I made a smaller one yesterday. The ideal ones to make are sort of out of these Boss bottles, the plastic Boss bottles. Those are perfect for them. I melted my experimental one in the process yesterday, which is why and I wanted to save the actual one in case we did it. So this is a smaller one, but these are just really fun that you can use with kids, and you can make them into all kinds of, there's so many recipes online and videos. Yeah. You can make glow in the dark ones. You can make all kinds of, you can add toys and sequins and beads and all kinds of things into them. And, they can be great to just hold like this back and forth, or to just hold like this and watch the glitter settle. And that can be just so soothing and calming for a child to sort of watch the glitter settle over time. And they work with toddlers all the way up to teens. I have a lot of teens who just like to hold them and watch them. And yeah, Julie has a son who loves them. And that's just a super easy way of making a sensory bottle or a sensory toy basically for kids. And I know that Tiffany's kiddos made a few of them.
So yeah, I will turn the camera onto them. This is Kira, Tessa, and Liv in order of age. They're all in their soccer gear. But do you guys want to shake some? Let's see. There we go. There's some glitter bottles. Shake them all around.
Oh my goodness, that's so many.
Look at that. Look at the glitter.
Awesome.
Can you hold it up close to the camera so they can see? You guys say hi.
Thank you for making those. Those look amazing. Yeah. Wow.
So also, you want to look at you can shake everyone. We got like a snow one, a midnight one. Oh, you want the cotton candy one? Here's your cotton candy. They've named them. Ooh. Okay, there's cotton candy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, there's a dark galaxy one there too. I see it. Oh my god.
Oh yeah.
Those are hard at work.
Hard at work. All right, girls. Do you want to go back to your movie? Yeah. Okay. Say bye, girls. So I thought I would just show you guys, the different ages. You might remember for the welcome baskets are 0 to 1, 1 to 3, 4 to 7, 8 to 12, and 13 to 18. So I'll just show you, not every age group, but I'll just give you an example. Let's see. Okay, so here is one for, I got to learn how to hold this. So that, okay. There we go. So in there, we've got the rattles. We've got sensory balls. We've got a rattle, a little lovey, a blanket. We've got a sensory item with the little, yep, and some books. We have Goodnight Moon in both English and Spanish in that one. Everybody gets a backpack so that when they can use it just for school or for activities, or when they're moving out, if they move on at some point, all these bins are collapsible, or they can be carried as is with a lid on them. And then they can also use the backpack. So I had spoken with another woman who donated some things in the program, who had worked with another DV agency and said that they had tried to get rid of trash bags because the idea of kids leaving somewhere with a trash bag is very dehumanizing and sort of is embarrassing. And so this is meant to be more of a permanent thing. So what else? Oh, and there's clothes in here. Sorry, they have like onesies. They have some toiletry stuff that I put into little bags for them. And then let's move over to say, let's do an 8 to 12. So for the 8 to 12-year-olds, everybody gets a fidget bin, not the 0 to 1s because they're 0 to 1, but they got one big thing. But all the 1 to 3s, 4 to 7, and 8 to 12s get a whole bin of sensory toys. You can see they're sort of different depending on the one. And then let's see, here's a good one. There's a Harry Potter puzzle, a highlights, hidden puzzles, some journals for drawing or coloring. I mean, for writing or coloring, a book, age appropriate book, some crayon pencils, the backpack, pajamas, a cozy blanket, the toiletry bag is here, some socks. Then they have, this is gel pens for the older kids. I give them gel pens as well. And what else? I think I'm missing something. Oh, a flashlight, like to put on just in case they need it at night. The younger kids got night lights. And then let's see, if we go to the older kids, here's a good older kid one. So for the older kids, we would do a girl one, why not? So we have the Popper sensory tools. They have some pajamas, a blanket, fuzzy socks, toiletries. They have glow in the dark smushy balls. This one is my favorite. This is an art therapy coloring kit where it's mini cards and pencils are included in it. Some playing cards for fun. They have their backpacks. Then some drawing tools, a journal, crosswords, lotion. So as you can kind of see here, if I stand up here, you can sort of see an overview. So this is all of the baskets.
That's so amazing.
That we have. I think it's 37 or something like that. And then just as the last thing, here are the bulk items that people have contributed. So there's like extra art supplies, extra fidgets, clothing, socks, toiletries, the extra bags, and then all of the toiletries here. So it's been an incredible thing to see this community come together and make these welcome baskets that are going to be, that was the other thing I was trying to show you, is that, so each basket, each basket has something personal. So we can write their names. We can use different paper if you guys don't like the luggage tag paper, but so when they come in, their name will be written on it so they know it's just for them, which is pretty cool. And then every bin has a top so that they can close it. And it also collapses. So
that's amazing.
Yeah, I think I'm so excited to have been part of this. And I'm really grateful that everyone that came out today to the Zoom from the Andover community, I'm amazed. Thank you. So, and to hear your enthusiasm and to sort of spread the news about the importance of supporting organizations like Transition House. And yeah, I just wanted to say a big thank you to Julie and Franzi and Olivia also for helping me coordinate this. We're happy to sort of take any feedback about how we could do it better next time, hopefully not virtually. Again, we don't have to. It'd be great to get together and do things like this. But so I don't know, Julie and Franzi, did you have a few more moments to answer questions, or just does anyone want to chat for a bit, or what's helpful?
Well, I want to be mindful of time. I know we started a little late. I would like folks to feel like they have the afternoon to themselves as well. And we will send out this information to you in a follow-up email along with some of those video clips that Julie shared as well. So we'll be sure to do that. I just also wanted to note that the enthusiasm around this project is truly felt. Like, and in non-Sibi efforts throughout this year in particular, it's been quite heartwarming, truly.
These are all of the people that donated items. I kept every gift basket. Some are from the same people, but I'm gonna keep all of them and make sure I get all the names down. I know Pride is in there, and everybody's in there really. But this is incredible.
This is. Yeah, Tiff and Olivia, are there ways that folks can kind of either share links if people don't have the capacity to put the baskets together, but to buy individual things for the baskets that we could spread to our networks?
Absolutely. And Margot, we can follow up after this call as well to make sure I'm understanding everything, but I could understanding everything correctly, but I could certainly send you some links that I think would be helpful to spread out to share with your communities. Absolutely. Yeah. Any other questions before we jump off?
This is wonderful. Tiffany, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah.
This has been great. Like, really, I'm so grateful for our Andover community and for organizations like Transition House, and for Olivia for helping organize, and for the three of you, Pride, Paige, and Margot, for supporting this effort. Awesome. Go Big Blue.
It's amazing. Thank you so much. And Paige, I'm so excited for you to start with this group of people who obviously
I am too. I'm very excited. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, good luck in your freshman year. I think it'll be great.
Thank you.
Thanks again. And folks can reach out to us at any time. We'll follow up soon, but also you can just go to our website. It's transitionhouse.org if you want to make a connection sooner.
Excellent.
All right.
Thank you all so much. I hope you have a wonderful
go on with your days.
Thank you. You too. Thanks again.
Enjoy Tulum, Margot.
Thank you. I'll be home tomorrow.
Okay. Call me.
Bye.